Sorry, I didn't give you space. Hi, everybody. Hi. Oh, awesome. Okay, well, we're going to keep it pretty light and casual. It's that mid-afternoon slump. Everybody's itching to get downstairs to get some more coffee. So I just want to talk a little bit more about some exploring of effective career ownership. So this is a lot of buzzwords we're going to use today, but we're going to go through it in a fun way, and then we're going to have some questions at the end as well in case you guys wanted to talk a little bit more about what I do, or remote working, or digital nomadism, whatever you think. So let's start off a little bit about me, because first you have to know who I am to understand, if I know what I'm talking about. So I'm Eryn. I'm Canadian. I'm also a digital nomad. I'm really gunning for the position of being the fun auntie in my household, so wish me luck there. I love dogs. I crochet, so I'm kind of like a little old grandma. I love brunch. It's my favorite meal. I eat it every time I get. And I'm also a gift queen, and I say GIF, not GIF. Sorry if that offends you, but I'm also the head of community at TopTal. So what is TopTal? I'm going to use them as an example in some of these slides that I talk later on, so I want to tell you a little bit more about what we do so that it makes a little bit more sense for you. So TopTal is a network of the world's best software engineering, design, and finance talent. And what's really cool about us is that we have over $100 million in annual revenue and triple-digit growth, which means that we are one of the largest fully distributed networks in workforces in the world because we have 0 offices, which is pretty cool. So we were founded in 2010, about 7, almost turning 8 years old now. We have over 4,000 clients. We're in 110 different countries, and we have not a single office anywhere, which is pretty cool. So what is the future of work? And this is kind of the theme of what we're going to talk about here today. Well, the future is definitely freelance, and all of the industry experts are saying so. So up top with McKinsey, they're saying that 20 to 30% of the working age population in the United States and Europe are going to be engaged in independent work. And so it's about 162 million individuals in those areas alone. And then Forbes is anticipating that 50% of the US workforce by 2020 is going to be remote. So what does this really say about your careers? What does this really mean? So what are really your options? Well, right now there's a million different ways that you can explain how you are employed. What's your employment status? It's almost as complicated as a relationship status these days. So, what are you? Are you agile talent? Are you a freelancer? Are you temporary? Are you entrepreneur? Are you founder, staff, you name it. There's so many different options on how to explain this, whether it's how often you're working or how you're working. So let's break down what some of these models are so that all of us can leave here with some more information on how to describe that status at the end of the day. So let's talk about the traditional employment model. Usually it's been centralized. So in the past, you have different customers and you have different employees, and in order for them to interact with each other, they usually go through a company with one another as well. So the company is basically going to be taking care of 2 different transactions. You have employees all the way over here on the left-hand side, and they're going to be working for a company who's going to pay them a salary. And then on the other side of things, you have the company that's providing a good or service to a customer, and they're paying them back in return for that. Pretty simple, very familiar. We've all seen this and probably done it before. So what are some of the pros of a centralized employment model? Well, it's nice and simple. So with this, you're signing one contract usually. It's just with one company. It's typically full-time hours or more regular and consistent work. You usually get employee benefits, so these are things like healthcare and any type of investment matching. You have lots of coworkers and peers, so there's that sense of social belonging and sense of community, which is really nice to have at work. Nobody likes working alone. And you also usually have some type of supported training and professional development. This sounds really nice and consistent, sounds like a good idea. But there are some cons as well. As with most things, there's going to be pros and cons. But sometimes it can be kind of monotonous, right? You're working on the same task, you're working on the same project with the same company. It's easy to get kind of bored. So what can you do to switch it up? It's usually on-site or on location. So you have an office that you're going to go to, maybe commuting every day. Sometimes it's set hours, depends on your office. Some of them are going flex time these days, but it could be a more structured schedule like 9 to 5. There's always the office drama. So what comes with an office is a water cooler. And I think we've all been around the water cooler drama that can happen in an office as well, which might be kind of stressful for some people. And sometimes there's less opportunity to increase your salary and payments. Oftentimes in a traditional work structure, they do salary reviews or performance reviews every 6 months to a year. So there's less of a chance for you to accelerate in that kind of regard of your career. So let's talk about some of these different models, because that's just one of them. We also have a freelance marketplace, and this is more of a distributed model. So for those of you who are familiar with networks, you might see some similarities in the graphics that I'm using here, but a distributed model has lots of different nodes here. So you have lots of different freelancers, and you have lots of different employers, and they're all connecting to each other, and they can all be working with multiple people on multiple connections. Let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of this one. Well, the freelance marketplace is distributed. So as I said here, if the nodes didn't really make sense, we have some nice little people, some nice little wallets. We all like making money. But the pros of this is that you get to work on a variety of projects, so kind of the opposite of that monotony of the other jobs. You get a bit more of a flexible work structure and hours, because usually you're setting your own schedule, which is really great. You usually get to choose if you want to work remotely or not, so you can be on site sometimes, you can work from home, you can work from really anywhere in the world so long as you have Wi-Fi, right? You get to set your own rates and income, and you also get full control over who you work with, because you also get to screen the companies that you're going to be working for and working with. But what are some of the cons of this? Because that sounds pretty magical. Set my own rates, make my own money, set my own hours, work from anywhere. That's a lot of fun, but what are some of the other sides of that? So there's usually a bit of a time investment. With that kind of centralized model, you're not constantly searching for new gigs, but sometimes you can feel like you're spinning your tires in this model because you're constantly looking for that next job, constantly looking for that next paycheck. So, that can be kind of tiresome for some. There's also the legal liabilities of being an independent contractor. So what happens if, God forbid, if we go down to the next 2 bullets down, like people don't pay you? What are you going to do legally to go after them and get that? What happens if someone sues you for copyright infringement but you didn't know? You're an independent contractor, and that can be kind of scary. What about undercutting rates to get noticed? So, this is a really tough one, especially for you advanced level developers. You're going to set your own rate, which is going to be higher because you know what you're doing, right? You're an expert. But there's going to be someone else who comes in, and on paper, they say that they know that they have the same skills as you. And to a client, they're going, why are you charging $100 an hour and this person's charging $20? So oftentimes you can be undercut and have to play a bit of this pricing game in order to get noticed and get jobs. That can also be very frustrating. In terms of professional growth and learning, you're kind of on your own for this one, so it's really up to you if after you put in the hours you want to continue getting some further education. Maybe you don't have the tools or resources, you have to find them on your own, go to Udemy, Pluralsight, and so on. And there's also a bit of a lack of peer and community, so short of going to something like a co-working space, you might be lacking out on that social aspect. So what are the other options here? Because it seems like there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons to each of them. Well, why not have the best of both worlds with something that's decentralized? So we've all been hearing lots about blockchain. Decentralization is the hottest new buzzword. Why not apply it to your career? Well, I'll make tons of Bitcoin, it'll be great. So with the decentralized model, it's got kind of some elements of both, right? Just like we see with all these other things. So there's a bunch of different groups and networks, there's a bunch of different clients, and there's a bunch of different freelancers, and they're all kind of interconnecting, but in these types of cohorts and groups. This one's a little bit more complicated to explain, so I'm going to use TopTal as a model here and just kind of explain some of the different pros and elements of it. Because a lot of these elements are very similar if we look at the pros from each of them. So like I said, you can kind of have the best of both worlds. Working on a variety of projects, those flexible hours, getting some different employee benefits, community and peers, training, professional development, and so on. So let's go through it in a little bit more detail here. So with TopTal as an example of a decentralized employer, the purpose of TopTal's service is really to connect that top talent with those top companies, so eliminating a lot of the frustrations that people typically have in that middle ground. So this is how we work in essence. So if we imagine that these are all of the talent and all of the companies in the world, what TopTal does is really just focus on the top of each of these. Now we have these fancy little green guys, nice visualization to see what our screening process really is, but TopTal is really just a set of 2 different funnels, right? So what we have that really kind of breaks the mold here is that we're screening both sides of the equation to take out the frustrations that you might have from that distributed model. So this is more of the decentralization I'm talking about. So basically on this side, we have talent that applies. They go through different types of screening for professionalism and communication. There's technical screening, because as I mentioned, there's developers, designers, and finance talent. So we're going to make that customized depending on what you're applying for. And at the end, we have this vetted talent. Well, talent's not good if you don't have anyone to pay you on the client side, so what about that? Well, we have client applications as well, and they also go through screening. We want to make sure that they have the money to pay you, they're good to work with, the projects are exciting. Most importantly, for those of you who've been freelancing, you're going to love this, they have reasonable expectations. Sometimes that can be frustrating. Then we go through matching, team, and screening, and we end up with these vetted jobs. So basically, where we have vetted jobs and vetted talent, and we have this customized matching, that's really where the value comes through. So this sounds all fine and dandy, but let's talk about value in general, and why do clients really like this model, and why does that mean that more clients are coming to this type of decentralized work? Well, I'm going to give you a case study from one of our clients, the Cleveland Cavaliers, for anyone who watches sports. And we're going to hope that this video works here.
Winning the 2016 championship was a moment that was very special for the city of Cleveland. Being a native Clevelander, growing up in a very sports-centric household, I knew what it meant to win. It allowed for 52 years of frustration and losses to be lifted in a single moment. The city came together, enjoyed the moment for what it was, and celebrated as a unit. There was such a unity and closeness in that process. It was great for us to be able to see the fans rejoice and really celebrate it together as a single core. For us, being able to create a critical, personalized experience for the time the fan plans on coming down to the venue, to their time here at the venue, and when they go home is first and foremost our ultimate goal. Well, Wine and Gold Nation, what it does, it allows us now to focus on the 99% of fans that won't step foot in this building. Now we have about 2 million fans that do come through this building for a variety of events throughout the course of the year. Where we have been missing is figuring out ways to identify and engage with those that won't step foot in.
The problem we were facing with engaging our fans was that we have a great experience here within the queue, but what we needed to be able to do is reach all of the fans that were now in our audience based off of the national and global recognition we were getting. So how do we reach those fans in particular? We solved that problem by developing an online membership portal for fans to go and sign up and receive gear as well as become a part of an online community.
By engaging fans based on their interests, as opposed to based on a generic marketing campaign or a generic email notification, you're targeting what they have engaged with you for, as opposed to what you want them to engage with. When you pair those two together, you have a much greater chance of developing a lifelong relationship with your users.
That's important because we value our fans over anything else, whether they're in the arena or beyond. This really focuses on the beyond and giving them a voice and bringing them into the community.
The Wine and Gold Fan Club platform faced an extremely tight deadline, and we were in playoffs when we started the project, so we knew that we needed really great developers to get us through the program.
We chose TopTal because everyone we talked to along the way was concerned with finding a solution to our problems and not just selling us, goods and services.
TopTal's talent is really excellent. Their development skills are second to none, and they are able to work through business problems in code incredibly efficiently. They can take a big problem, break it down into smaller problems, and then execute on them in a very tight timeline and produce working software.
TopTal inserted themselves seamlessly where it almost doesn't feel like it's, removed from the organization at all. I would definitely recommend TopTal to others for anyone looking for help with a project, big or small.
In hindsight, we look back on this, and it's not a vendor-client relationship. It's really a partnership where they've been able to be along for the ride with us in this process by delivering value back to our fan base, which is all we can ask for.
Cool. All right, so that gives you a little bit more idea of what the clients are usually looking for. And oftentimes clients don't have a lot of time to worry about if they're getting the right talent. They don't have time to launch applications like the Cleveland Cavaliers did in a 6-day span and find the right people to do it immediately and do it right. So for them, this type of agile talent is still important, but going in a fully distributed model, they don't have that kind of guarantee and that kind of pre-screened and pre-vetting of these communities that have developed and these cohorts that have developed. So in this particular case, it was really valuable to large companies where they just know for sure that this is going to work out the first time, because time is money, and then you miss out these opportunities, you miss out on making income as well. So let's talk a little bit more about why these types of models are valuable for talent. So for companies, we know it's to generate income, but each of us are independent business people as well, but we're also people, and that's really important to touch that side of things. So let's talk about that in more detail. Well, we find that top talent globally finds the following things valuable. And this is probably going to ring true, and it's probably going to be very obvious, but it's something that not everybody thinks about. Working on great projects with great companies, flexible work structure, engaging socially with top talent, growing and being challenged, becoming thought leaders, and teaching and empowering others. So these are the things that top talent around the world, especially when surveyed, are marking down as being incredibly important for their careers. So let's break each of these down. So in a decentralized model, what's nice is you get access to more companies. Sometimes on your own, you might not have the ability to work with these major companies because it's a lot harder to get your foot in the door, to meet the right people, and to make those different types of connections. So if you want to work on really exciting and compelling projects, having the clout of that network behind you can really help out. In terms of flexible work structure, I think this is definitely the sexiest part of being a freelancer, and it's definitely the sexiest part about being decentralized, is really just staying in control of your career. So setting your own rates, setting your own hours, working when you feel the most motivated to work, and working from anywhere in the world. So, working on your own terms is quite important for pretty much anyone of any lifestyle. If you have kids at home, it might be nice to stay at home. If you enjoy to travel, you can travel wherever you'd like. There's lots of different options when your career is truly in your hands. Engaging socially with top talent. So we kind of saw two different ends of the spectrum earlier. There's the one end where you're engaging so much socially in an office setting, which sometimes can be a little bit dramatic or a little bit too much. But then as opposed to that, when you're a freelancer, you can be quite isolated. So having this type of decentralized system where there's different networks and communities of people, you really get a chance to engage socially at a level that you're comfortable with and at a level that you desire. To give you an example of the types of things that the TopTal community is involved in, because we're in over 100, I think we're at 114 countries now, last time I checked, we host a lot of in-person events. So there's usually another TopTaler nearby. There's actually 3 TopTalers that live right in Santo Domingo, and they get together sometimes as well. So we hosted over 365 in-person events last year, which is over 1 a day. People are getting together and socializing. We also sponsored more than 200 events so that you can get to know other communities and other cohorts of people that are doing similar things to you. And we sent over 1 million Slack messages, or 1 million messages in Slack, so people are able to connect no matter where they are in the world. And having these types of community is not only great for engaging socially, but it's really important to grow and be challenged and learn from other people. So in terms of growing and being challenged, again, we saw 2 different sides of the spectrum. If you're at a company, oftentimes they will offer you different educational programs, different educational paths that you can take advantage of. But if you're on your own and you've just pulled an all-nighter working for 10 hours and trying to find that next client, it might be a lot less desirable or not really know where to start on your education. So with TopTal, we kind of use this as an opportunity to guide people in their education. For beginners who are looking to get into a new skill set, again, I'll use blockchain as an example, it's something that's fairly new, and a lot of people are wanting to explore and get into to see if it's for them. So we came up with a blockchain challenge where people could basically do some self-guided learning on Udemy and come together for a Saturday in an 8-hour session to challenge each other with their skills. And there was a lot of great prizes, including a round-trip ticket anywhere in the world, and all expenses paid to any blockchain conference. So really encouraging people to kickstart their learning. We also have academies, so it's a bit more of a grad school level course, and we have specializations where if you pass additional testing, then we publicly endorse you for that skill. So it makes you more likely to get hired and get jobs, which is awesome. Again, using that power of having a network and a community to leverage your personal career is the whole kind of point with this decentralized system. In terms of becoming thought leaders, so using that cloud as a bit of a stage and to let other people know that you're a part of this amazing community of individuals. So what we find is really fascinating is that tons of people are experts in their field. They're the top developers, designers, finance talent, but not all of us were born being comfortable with public speaking. And if you have the opportunity to learn how to do it and the tools with a community to do it as well, you might do it more often. So we developed things like the Speakers Network, where we give you the soft skills to be a better public speaker, and then we help place you at different conferences around the world. We also have TopTal Publications, which is our TopTal blog. Lots of great stuff on there, especially from our Python community if you're interested. Our publications get over 200,000 views per week. So by being a part of this community, you get to publish on the blog and get tons of additional exposure, meaning more jobs for you as well. Again, leveraging that community and social network to make sure that you're getting more jobs. We also have community leaders, so people who want to host those different in-person events, they can work with each other to host them, learn with one another, host different meetups and skill sessions as well. And finally, teaching and empowering others. For anyone who's done any work with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know that once you're making good money, engaging socially, have all types of physical protection and emotional protection, then you start wanting to give back to others to bring them up to that level as well. So with Top Talent, these different types of networks, we see lots of philanthropic efforts come through where you can contribute and give back to your communities. We have the Mentors Network where you can really shape, the next generation of any type of skill set. We have Top Volunteer where you can work with top NGOs like the United Nations and donate your time to work directly with them, because oftentimes these different nonprofits and NGOs, they don't have the money or the resources to get top talent, but top talent want to share their skills. So we found that that was important to incorporate. And we also have scholarships and grants, including open source grants, where last year alone we contributed $100,000 in grants to top tellers that were contributing to open source projects. So it offset the cost of living so they could contribute to these projects that are being used globally. So it was really important to them as well. But you can really see these trends is if you can get all of these different value points, why wouldn't you decentralize? If you have all of the pros from each of that, distributed system as well as the centralized system, why wouldn't you want to take the one that has the most pros? So I guess it kind of leaves it open towards the end here is what direction do you really want to take? There's pros and cons to each of them, but you can kind of control your career with whatever suits you personally best. Some people prefer the stability and the on-site environment and are most motivated with that in a centralized version. Lots of other people really enjoy that fast-paced, looking for new jobs in a freelancer network, freelancing, which is distributed, or you can go decentralized and have a little bit of both if that's what really compels you. So that was my full presentation and talking a little bit about Top Talent and the different types of career paths you can take. And I'm happy to open up for questions or a roundtable discussion about what everybody's interested in doing with their careers. Come on, guys, don't leave me hanging. Hi.
You said you're in 114 countries?
Yes. Yes, we have 3 top tellers that live in Santo Domingo alone. We have 3 people who live in Santo Domingo alone, and I think there's a couple of people on the north side of the island as well. Yes?
Another question. Does the salary depend on where you're based, or if you're remote, it doesn't matter? Is that mostly skill-based, or how does it work?
So we still let everybody set their own rates. It's a great question because it's a complex one. We let everybody set their own rates, but we definitely help with coaching to let you know what's going to be market competitive. Because as you know, supply and demand is part of it. So in-demand skill sets can usually charge a little bit more than those who might be, old or expiring skill sets, so technologies that aren't being used as much anymore. Part of it is based on time zone. So it's less about the specific country that you're in and more about compatibility with where a lot of clients are. If we're finding that a lot of head offices for clients are in the United States, this is actually a great time zone to be in because you're going to overlap with their teams a lot more. If you're working somewhere like Southeast Asia where your entire overlap is overnight, it might be less desirable. We'll help coach you on a lot of those different items to tell you what would be a reasonable range and then let you set within that or outside of that if you'd like, but just telling you what realistic expectations would be for that salary. So that's kind of the expertise that you get to lean back on in this type of a decentralized system is leveraging those resources. So they do the market analysis for you. Nope, none whatsoever. So you come in and you say what you want to get paid, and then we try and pitch you to clients with that amount, and the clients will pay us extra to help them with this type of matchmaking service. Yeah. Absolutely. So the cohort type system, I mean that in companies like TopTal, so ones that are existing networks. So basically getting into this type of a community and then leveraging the both sides of that community, being both talent and clients as well, so that you really get to use the power of that. So there's the easiest saying I can compare it to is, you've all heard, you're the company that you keep or the average of your 5 closest friends. So if you associate yourself with other individuals who are like-minded and just as skilled as you, then it really elevates that amount of credibility. And same happens for clients as well. So they go, hey, I have money, I want someone to do it right, I want a professional, what can I do, what are my options? Similarly, for all of you who are incredibly skilled experts, you say, I do have the skills to do it right, I don't want to drop my rate to half rate. Now I'm going to associate with other individuals who are just as prominent experts in their fields, and that will help me get the money that I deserve. So leveraging that community to make sure that you're finding other like-minded individuals on both sides of the equation to keep that value proposition high. Does that answer your question? Cool. My pleasure. Another hand over here. Hi. Oh, it's in booming. So I'd say the most popular jobs that we're seeing come across right now is a lot of React Native, so some of the front-end technologies. Data science is huge, DevOps is massive, and then blockchain. I've mentioned it a million times, and you've all heard it a million times. Pardon? Okay. If you have a Python background, however, then Python and C++, you're really eligible experts to learn. Everybody is, but you're more apt to learn blockchain much quicker. The stat right now is that there's 14 blockchain jobs posted for every 1 developer worldwide right now. If you're considering a career change, again, if we consider that supply and demand part of before, blockchain developers are typically able to charge almost twice as much, if not more. So if you're thinking about taking a course, there's some great ones on Udemy and Pluralsight. So it depends on the application of blockchain, right? Some of it is smart contracts, but some is building the entire infrastructure as well. So, I mean, a lot of people are looking for well-rounded experts right now, so make sure you know your smart contracts, solidity, and otherwise. But nobody's looking as diverse just yet. So they do want a little bit of each element of blockchain, which is great for learners because you're going to learn a little bit of everything and then decide where to specialize later. And that's when those jobs are going to come up for specialization, is in another 6 months to a year, once these frameworks start being built and people have done MVP versions of their companies. Great question. So it'll probably be too far to click back, but it's 4 or 5 stages. It depends on the type of expertise that you have, but it always starts with English language screening and personality testing. So we want to make sure, just like how we're screening clients to make sure they're good people, we want to have good people within our talent network as well. So making sure you're very professional, because if one of us is not, like I said, it reflects on the rest of the people in the network. The next step of that is going to be a type of Codility or online testing. So it's usually an online skills test. Following that is going to be a live project screen, just to make sure that you can talk through how you would assess something, talk through problem solving. And then lastly, it's going to be a project, and that's for communication as well. So it's usually 10 to 30 hours in length. Again, depends on what you're going into. But it's a chance for you to say, this is how long I estimate this project to take, this is how I would tackle this question, and really solve this problem. So there's a few different stages to test different capabilities to get in. So it is hard, but like I said, there's a lot of benefits once you do get in, because you're with so many other people who are amazing as well. It is, especially when we're looking at different verticals. So especially if you're not a software engineer, how can you compare a software engineer to a finance expert, right? Like a finance expert won't know how to complete a Codility test. It's just not reasonable. So even for specializations within technology, we change it depending on what you're going into. So a front-end developer and a back-end developer even would have something very different from one another, and the projects would be different as well. So we customize it to what you're getting into to know, what are your skill sets. Absolutely. So we don't match anyone who hasn't had any experience with blockchain, and that's why we're putting a heavy emphasis on education, so people who are interested can come through. The people that we're seeing as being the highest aptitude for learning for that is anyone with back-end technology, C++, and Python, because they have some similar frameworks and similar ways of thinking that have shown to learn things a little bit quicker and make it stick. In terms of the jobs themselves, as I mentioned, it was something that's more generalized. So someone needs to know a little bit about smart contracts, a little bit about the full coding and development, but we are definitely skewing way more towards full development rather than someone who's kind of theoretical and business modeling, because that's something that is, a lot of businesses are kind of doing that and then coming to us for the full development of it, if that makes sense. So the business structuring, business modeling will be done by the companies themselves, and then they come to us for the actual development and deployment of that, right? Yep.
What's your approach for talking a lot about
right?
We are recruiting what's your approach?
Yeah, great question. So we do have a program that I can send you more details on as well. It's called Talent Partners. So basically, if you have some sort of a team or development shop, then they can all apply, and each individual person has to pass TopTal screening. And then you can apply, saying, hey, we have the skill sets that would match this job, and then we would match within your skill sets for those particular clients. So there is an option, but it is less common, just because usually the acceptance rate for TopTal is around 3%, and oftentimes in one development team, if everyone's at 3%, then they're, yeah. So does that answer your question? Yeah, absolutely. I'll send you a one-pager on that when I get it. Absolutely. So the screening process for clients, let me see if I can scroll way back. I can't. It's very similar, so it's multiple stages, but it clearly doesn't test them on their technical knowledge because they're coming to us for that. But we screen them doing like a personality and expectations. So we make sure that they are good to work with, they're not going to be abusive to our talent. Do they have reasonable expectations? So is it just completely contrasting skill sets that you would never find in one person and they want to pay $5 an hour for? So we set expectations and just make sure that it's something that's very reasonable. The next step of that is really getting into the nitty-gritty of the job description itself and their technical requirements, making sure that the project is going to be set up for success, and making sure that they have someone who's technical enough to manage the project. Because you're going to be integrating seamlessly into their team, and you have to make sure that it's not someone who's going to be like, oh, figure this out, and then you uncover a bunch of problems and they don't understand. So we make sure that they're going to be good to work with in the specifics of that job. And then lastly, they come through and we start doing the matching, and a lot of talent can actually reject clients as well. So if they keep getting rejected, then they're out from the client side of things. So you get to choose, we don't sell people. So the last step is with our talent. They get to choose if this is a compelling person to work with. And then it's, once you're in, it doesn't mean you're in for life. If both sides of the equation, someone slips up, so if a client starts being unreasonable, stops paying, then they're also out of the network. So we keep it pretty lean. You mean if the client stops paying, does the talent still get paid? Yes. Yeah.
To follow that, when you get assigned to a project, how it usually lasts? Is it like a few weeks, months, several years?
It really depends on the project. I can tell you averages, which doesn't say a lot because sometimes there's many of them that are 2 weeks in length, and some of them, even when I started at TopTal, there was a client of mine that they had a 2-week project, and the person is still on the same project 2 years later, because we're a matchmaking service and people do fall in love. But our average is about an 8-month-long engagement, and it's usually hovering somewhere between part-time and full-time hours. Yeah. I think your hand was up before. Well, it is individual. So although we have groups like Talent Partners, it is still an individual contributor basis. And if someone is dropping behind, it's not fair for the whole team, right? So they would be removed from the project in that case. But oftentimes with TopTal, then you're being matched directly with the client as well. So you might be working on a combined team of other TopTalers that you may or may not have worked with before, and members of their technical teams also. So we'll provide additional coaching, training, and guidance on how to handle sticky situations like that, but you're not in it alone. So it goes through TopTal, and the reason behind that is for simplicity for you. So you just sign that one payment contract, but also because we help protect you in certain instances where the client doesn't pay. So if, for example, the client stops paying, you're still going to get the paycheck for the hours that you worked, and then we take that responsibility and legal liability for you. And that's by having just the one contract signed with TopTal, and then the client also signs the one contract with TopTal as well, so it's simplified billing. So this way we just find that you shouldn't have to worry about getting paid. You set your rates, you work the hours, you tell us what you worked, and you get paid. And it's as simple as that. Yeah.
What about the requirements? You have to provide the requirements.
So when the payments will go through TopTal, but you're working directly with the client. So the specs might come from a project manager on their team, or it might come from a project manager at TopTal. It depends on the structure of that specific project. But you'll be working and communicating directly with the client, because it doesn't make sense to play telephone and maybe lose some pieces of information that are really vital. You integrate seamlessly with their team, but all we do is take care of all the legal paperwork and matching for you. So consider us like administration, but the project itself, you're with them. Pardon me?
But are they just making the
Oh, the financial part. Sorry about that. How do we make it? Yeah. So as I was mentioning before, like the talent will set their rates, and then the clients will pay TopTal extra for facilitating that interaction. So it doesn't come out of your pocket; it comes out of the client portion of things. Yeah. So basically, consider us like a facilitation role, but the work will be directly between the two of you, and then we take care of all the paperwork, legal and billing on both sides. So again, leveraging kind of like that cohort aspect again, it's semi-centralized, right? So not fully decentralized peer-to-peer, but having a bit of a filtration system. Yes? Yes, in a very simplified form, yes. But the only difference is it's still more for the Agile network and not for full-time contracting and placement. Because for a recruitment agency, it can be quite expensive for clients, like $30,000 to $60,000 per person. And then for talent, it can be quite stressful because you're going back into a centralized version, working directly with that client for a long period of time. So it's kind of that intermediary again.
If those are the hiring to work with the client, that client can't come.
No. So it is that would be considered circumvention. So while we do facilitate, then we do need to run a business as well. So we can't facilitate an introduction and then work directly with them. Yeah, I think that's reasonable, right? Cool. Well, you guys might be kicking me out of the room first, but in a minute or two here. Okay. Oh, we're heading into a break. Cool.